All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, February 13th. And a pretty quiet day, I would say, overall. I'll go over a couple of things, but this video will be pretty short because there's just not a lot to talk about for today. Of course, we can kind of go through some charts and so forth. Cisco reported earnings, and interesting that what they said here in their call, which I should have in here. Cisco gives not the call, but just maybe a press statement and a story on Bloomberg here. Cisco gives bullish revenue forecast, cites move to software, right, which is basically where we're seeing all the growth is in software. Company says all geographics business reports sales growth, so really growth, and then their outlook, their expectations for the next quarter were pretty good. Security collaboration software provide upbeat performance. Again, where we're going to be looking for a lot of growth, where we've done very well so far in 2019, playing a lot of the small cap security and especially software players, application, enterprise, infrastructure. You've heard we talk about it over and over, but this is where the growth is for now. So this I think is interesting, and the fact that that they are coming out and kind of switching a little bit, or kind of moving the ship a little bit even more towards software, I think is notable, right? I mean, we've certainly have seen some of the bigger players in tech, and they're trying to change to be some of the niche guys that are out there. You know, your Splunk, your Viva Systems, your ServiceNow, your Workday, your Salesforce, right? I mean, this is where some of the old tech, like IBM purchasing Red Hat, is trying to kind of move their bigger companies to. So, I think that's great. You have to ask yourself, do you want to be in one of these companies, as an investment that is going to kind of change the direction of the ship, or do you want to be in some of the small caps, or maybe you don't like the group altogether? But this is the group that I like and continue to like until they stop growing. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to be in some of these smaller plays that are specializing, or one of the bigger companies that might be able to kind of turn around their business and move to some of these places, and that perhaps have a bigger wallet to kind of take out some of the smaller cap names, which again is where I'd like to be right now. So I figure on a day there's not much to kind of talk about. S&P closed up on the day. Got a couple comments in the room today about the late day sell-off. Does that mean something's going on with China and trade talks? I don't know. I mean, there certainly could be. I just don't have any information. But also, we've been on a huge run, right? I mean, you kind of just have to put this in the back of your mind that markets don't go down in a straight line. They don't go up in a straight line. So we've been moving. I hope they continue to go up. I've been talking about it now for weeks. I'm positioned more bullishly. I'm positioned bullishly as I've been for the last few weeks, but I'm trying to take off as many targets as possible. I mean, I started a few trades this morning, and I said that's it. I'm not, I'm not getting sucked into adding, putting on positions at the wrong time, right? Because timing is everything. But we've had a nice, yesterday was awesome. One of the things I sent out on the private Twitter feed was, try not to give back. Try not to give back the profits that you made yesterday, right? I mean, that's a big mistake that can be made, and is a repeat offender, right? Sometimes we see everything like we did yesterday go green, and it kind of feels easy, and it becomes almost a little bit of a sugar rush. Best thing that you could do when that happens is to go for a walk. Maybe a couple hour walk, maybe go for a vacation for a day or two. Because we know trading is not easy all the time. And sometimes what happens is you have a great day, and you start to get a little bit overconfident, and you start to put on more risk than you should, and you give all those profits back and then some. It's almost like at the casino, right? Which again, I don't like to make too many parallels to the casino versus what we do on a day-to-day basis, because I think that it's a completely different game, and that's a whole nother conversation. But sometimes you have tendencies to do things like, you're winning, you're doing well, and you stay at the table too long, and you give it back because now you're continue to play, rather than analyze and be disciplined and wait for the right setups, right? So that's kind of the difference, right, between going to a casino and trading, right? Trading is all about being disciplined, sticking to your system, and not just throwing chips on the table. Again, big difference. So that's S&P, and again, a late day sell off in some things. There's going to be at some point there's going to be profit taking, right? The people. So again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know when that happens. But if you got long all the way in here and you're a fund, I think it's just as I'm doing, right? Taking money off the table and not putting on too many new bets, or new trades, I should say. Sorry. But just be mindful of that, right? I mean, I personally would not really want to be getting, you know, getting longer than where I was down here. But anyway, again, that's a lot, and that's something that you have to think about as a trader. This video, of course, is for information purposes only. But here's here's what I'm looking at, right? I mean, I'm going to keep some existing trades on. I mean, I added a Square trade today, which I've been kind of dying to get back into Square for the last week. It just didn't line up perfectly. Where did Square finish, by the way? I think it sold off at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, my stop is I've got a really nice, pretty close and to the money stop here, 73.87 in Square, and it's just above that downtrend line. So it's really just it doesn't seem to have the momentum right now, which is a little bit troubling. Maybe they're a little bit worried about that Pfizer deal, or that some investors are maybe a little bit worried about that. But for the time being, I did get long there, and I have a little bit of bumper room down to that red line, which is my stop. But yeah, I mean, these are all things that you need to think about in terms of your game plan, and if we do get it. So here's my plan. I started to say this and I lost my train of thought. But my major train of thought here is I want to have cash, and a lot of cash available, so that let's say that we do get a sell off, right? And we've kind of forgotten. It's been now, all the way back here, December 24th, since we've had any major real volatility. Am I expecting a move back down there? No, personally, but I am expecting at some point we get more volatility. So you've got to remember, we've got a 3-day weekend coming up too. So always look, try to look a few days ahead, and realize that we've got a 3-day weekend, and probably traders don't want to have a lot of risk on, or extra risk going into a 3-day weekend. It's just basic principle, basic trading principles. When you have a long weekend, sometimes you feel like more things can go wrong than go right in that amount of time. So that's going to be Thursday and Friday for the remainder of the week. I think you want to think about things like that. We talked about how the FANG stocks got going yesterday, and it seems like it's kind of right now, and maybe I'm jumping to this conclusion without doing any major research, but it seems like we get one day out of the week where the FANG stocks go, and then they just kind of chill out. They don't do any. They're kind of dead money for a few days. Maybe it's not one out of every five, but it just feels like that, where they get going one day, and it's like, oh, these things are finally going to get going, and then they just don't do anything. So. Again, we talked a little bit about that yesterday. That they're acting different right now. So I saw right before I did the video, I saw a question about is it going to be, I get this I see this all the time too with the bank stocks too, like, oh well we're going to need the FANG stocks for the market to get going, or we're going to need the bank stocks to get going for this market to really take out the highs. Then there's a very simple solution. Do not trade the indices if you think that that's dependent upon happening. I don't know if people, I don't think very clearly about what they can and what they can't do. Remember, as an individual investor, you could do whatever you want. You don't have to own the SPY. You don't have to be hooked into the 200-day moving average. You could pick whatever stocks. Right? I talked in the beginning of the video. We're talking about software. Wouldn't you rather be in names or groups of stocks like this that have just, here was the 200-day moving average. Yeah, it consolidated for a little bit. Look at what it's doing now, right? This, this is the market leader. So you could pick whatever you want. You don't have to say, oh, we're going to need the banks to participate for, or we're going to need the FANG. Don't trade the FANG stocks. If you think that they've stalled and they're lacking, Netflix gave a really nice day yesterday. Inside day today, although closed really weak, down 2.2% today. But, I mean, it's done this before up on this level. So I would be wary of a move back into value for Netflix. Again, I saw a lot of people talking about option activity yesterday in Netflix. Okay, well, if that was so great, then why isn't the stock breaking out? If that option activity was so great. Again, I'll give you every day I argue about I've got a love-hate relationship, but where's down 2.3% today? Where was all your call buying? How come it didn't lift the stock to new highs? So but again, it's good for momentum, right? There was short-term momentum yesterday in Netflix. There was a little bit of that this morning in Twitter. There was some call buyers that came in. Again, it doesn't mean that they know anything. It just means that they're buying for a set amount of time. Once they stop buying, the stock doesn't go up anymore. But there was some Twitter calls that went up right in the first hour of the day. I did not chase. I didn't do anything with Twitter. What else? A couple other areas. So energy, which has been seeing a little bit of interest here and there. We talked about a big XOP trade yesterday. I talked about that in yesterday's video, but that was a couple days ago. But yeah, this group is hanging in there, and probably underowned. And I think there's some bright spots within energy. That was your best performing group today. Another group that I forgot to mention yesterday is healthcare. I forget if I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but I do like. It was just up 20 basis points this morning, but I think you're gonna have to stretch it out a little bit. In XLV, make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time if you want to trade this really cheap options. But I personally would give it a few months. So that's it. We put on a couple earnings plays for today. Zebra was one, ZBRA, that reports tomorrow morning. We'll see how that goes. So I'll leave it there. Like I said, I'll keep the video a little bit shorter than normal. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.